94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
6 minutes to 8. Our conversation continues. Now, the future belongs to those who do what? Who prepare for it. Okay? Are you prepared for your future? Join the fastest growing pension fund in Kenya, Taifa Pension Fund, registered and regulated by the Retirement Benefits Authority, and its contracted out scheme receiving Tier 2 contributions. www.taifapensionfund.com. That's 3 W's city dot Taifa Pension Fund.
We normally do this. There are people who count three like this.
And there is.
Yes.
And then there is this.
And then there's this.
It's you.
And then there's this.
Wow.
Hang on, Dick. www.taifapensionfund.com. All right, Dr. Isabel Makadual, family physician from the PCA Kikuyu Hospital, is here. We're talking about diabetes. Many questions online.
Many questions.
Ask.
We can look into some of them. I just have to say, Azaria is a gentleman, not a lady. So I just need to. I get that all the time, so I understand that as well. Before that, SKM is asking about the connection between genetics and diabetes. Is it possible, or is it often the case that it is inherited from parents?
Yes, there is a link between genetics and diabetes, especially if you have a first-degree relative who has diabetes. Chances of having diabetes is high, and that is why we recommend patients who have a first-degree relative to start their screenings done at least from 35 years and above.
What's a first-degree relative?
That's your mom, your dad, your brothers, your
direct.
Yes,
okay,
yes.
All right.
You should have screening done.
Wait, excuse me, teacher. If my elder brother gets diabetes at 40 and I was born later after he was born, he's my first degree relative. Do I have that risk?
Yes, the fact that he's your...
Sorry.
But it was his lifestyle.
So, yes,
Okay.
yes. We do not negate the fact that lifestyle does play a role in diabetes. But the fact that you have a family history of diabetes, I always tell my patients, it's my language, you have to work extra harder. You have to be more intentional in terms of your exercise, more intentional in terms of your diet, because you are at risk of having diabetes. So if you're screened and you find that your sugar levels are within normal, it's advisable for you to do your screen every 3 years, just to make sure that you do not develop diabetes, or even if you do, it's caught early and you're able to manage it.
Okay.
Yes.
My younger brother got a diabetic attack. He is type 1.
Yes.
And when I went for him, I fed him sugar, thinking it was the lack of it that made him weak. And there was a lack of knowledge. And it's interesting because we hear it a lot. I need a shot of something. I need some sugar to, wake up.
Sugar rush.
I need, exactly. And we hear that from some diabetics. Is that a misnomer?
So one of the important things that we need to recognize are what we call the laws of diabetes. And actually, when we are diagnosing our patients with diabetes, we educate them on what to look out for when your sugar is low. Then I'll talk about the diabetic emergency. So it's important to know when his sugar is low. So usually what happens, the patient gets very agitated. They're very irritated, they have blood vision, they start shaking. So we advise our patients that when you have any of this, you should take now sugar at that point, because most of the time your sugar levels are low. But from what I'm hearing, his relative got what we call a diabetic emergency, which is called, most of the time in type 1, it's called the diabetic ketoacidosis. So what happens at that point, because of insulin levels being low, most of the time these patients have infection, which trigger them to go into the diabetic ketoacidosis. So what happens, the body tries to find sugar from the body, so it breaks down the fat. So when it breaks down the fat, they go into what we call an acidosis. So with that, most of the time the sugar is actually high. So at that point, you do not need to administer glucose. If anything, we need to lower the sugar levels, address what is causing the emergency. We give a lot of fluids, and usually the patients respond. So that's a patient who should not have been given sugar.
So what should happen?
If anything, they need insulin, they need intravenous fluids.
To absorb it.
Exactly.
But then this is something that has started because your body had not enough sugar. And then the body is looking for the sugar. And then now it gets excess sugar. Am I getting that sequence right?
So for diabetic ketoacidosis, usually it's triggered by an infection. So when they have an infection, most of the time these patients don't eat. So they're not eating. So the body is now trying to find sugar.
Right.
So what the body does, it breaks down the fats that are already there to try and get sugar for this speech. As it breaks down the fats, now it also leads to acids. So as it breaks down the fat, you get the acids, what you get now, what you call the diabetic ketoacidosis.
Okay.
So at that point, the sugar is very high. So it has broken down the fats to get sugar. The sugar level has gone up. And as it breaks down the fat, some of the components of breaking down the fat is the acids, which is called the ketoacidosis.
Okay. 3 questions. 1, when you're referred to as a family doctor, what does that mean?
All right, thank you. So a family physician...
Family has a history of doctors.
So family medicine, we are trained to take care of a patient who is part of a family, who is part of a community. So we are trained to take care of the whole family, which is the children, the adults, the geriatrics, even pregnant mothers. We are trained to take care of them. We call ourselves specialist generalists, but we are passionate about prevention of diseases, because we feel most of the time, by the time a patient has presented with a certain condition, like what you're calling about diabetic ketoacidosis, that is something would have been prevented if a patient was screened out there in the community. So we are passionate about prevention, about community care, but our purpose mainly is to take care of the whole family. So we're able to guide you, like if you need a certain specialist, because we are your family doctor, we can guide you which specialist do you need to see and at what point you need to see the specialist. Yes, so that is what a family doctor does.
All right. Question 1. What is the relationship between stress and diabetes?
All right. So, when the body is under stress, it produces a hormone called cortisol. So, with the cortisol levels going up, any stress causes breakdown also of the fats, of the stress hormones, what you call it. So, they increase your sugar levels. So, anytime you have stress, it breaks down most of those fats and the sugar levels tend to go up. So, it's like your hormones are in an overdrive. So, it's like you're telling your body you're in trouble. So it breaks down the fats and the sugars, so sugars go up.
What is it that would lower your sugar levels?
When you're stressed, or just generally?
No, generally speaking, what would lower your sugar levels?
So medication would lower your sugar levels.
Mm-hmm.
Also, that's a tricky question. Do you mean like, are you're already...
Go on holiday? Okay, I'm joking.
Well, I'm combining 2 questions into one.
Yes.
There are those who say they are hypertensive.
Yes.
And then there's the hypo.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
hypotension or hypoglycemia?
yes, hypertension, not hypoglycemia. We can get there. But I'm asking, what is it that happens with people? Because people sometimes say, okay, now, disclosure, I speak as a diabetic.
All right.
I am diabetic.
Yes.
But now, generally speaking, what is it that then makes people who say that they're diabetic need to hang around with sugars, a chocolate, a sweet? What is the need for all this?
So most of the time with those patients, the sugar control probably is not very good. And that is why you need regular follow-up for you to have a discussion. Because every time a patient comes before you, we check on how are their blood sugars at home. And based on their blood sugars, we're able to regulate their medication. But we also say things can happen. Maybe you didn't take your shot, or maybe you took too much of your medication, so your sugar level drops. And that is why we say we teach our patients on what are the signs to look out for hypoglycemia. And when that happens, that's why you tell them you should have a sweet. When that happens, you can take a sweet and the sugar can quickly go up. But most of the time, it reflects on the control of the blood sugar of this patient.
So it's over control.
It can be, let me explain. Sometimes diabetics can eat less than what they are required to do. Some of them misconstrue how their diet is supposed to be. So some of them go into extreme fasting in their attempt to lose weight because they are trying to manage their sugar. So with that, sometimes the blood sugar dips too much, and then they get into hypoglycemia, which can cause them to go to faint and lose consciousness. So just to avoid such episodes, we advise them in case you feel those signs and symptoms of low blood sugar, it's important for you to have the glucose. Sometimes you may eat something very little and you take your normal requirement of insulin, so your sugar does what? It dips based on the amount of food you've taken. So just for prevention, we usually advise our patients to have something sweet to eat, just in case they have the signs of hypoglycemia.
Okay, lastly, what is the relationship of water to diabetes?
Proper rehydration is definitely important for patients who are diabetic. And actually, sometimes when a patient comes and the sugar levels are high, we actually give them fluids, even sometimes without insulin, and then it actually dips. So there is a relation that with increased water, it can actually help to lower your blood sugar levels. And of course, good hydration is important because even the kidneys are involved in the whole regulation of the sugars of your blood pressure, so they go in tandem. Yes.
You spoke about how it presents itself, increased urination, especially at night, thirst, blood vision, weight loss, tingling or numbness of hands and lower limbs. Someone is asking, how about fatigue?
Yes. I didn't exhaust the list. Yes, there is fatigue. There's so many things. There is fatigue, especially sometimes when a patient comes to you and they say they are feeling very tired. They just feel like their energy levels are down. Those are patients we actually need to also check what are their sugar levels. Yeah, there's weight loss, there's blood vision, I just mentioned the main ones that usually our patients present with. And most of the time when we see that, and it's important for the public to know that increased urination, increased thirst, blood vision, headaches, fatigue, weight loss, unexplained weight loss, those are key things, and especially numbness, we see that a lot. Those are key things that we need to, when you see them, even in your people around you, encourage them to have a blood sugar test. Yes.
Lifestyle change, high fiber diet.
Yes.
What's high fiber?
So high fiber diet, when you look at the plate of a diabetic patient, we encourage them to have a lot of vegetables, a lot of fruits.
What type of vegetables?
Okay, vegetables are vegetables. Green,
Kuna zingine purple, kuna zingine orange.
Ile cabbage purple.
Ile cabbage juicy, that sort of thing. So then kuna green.
No, vegetables generally, all vegetables are high in fiber.
Yeah, they're good.
And they are good. Yes. They are good. Fruits are the ones that we usually encourage our patients to get counsel from the nutritionist, because some fruits are very high in sugar. So usually in terms of fruits, the nutritionist is able to give a guide on portions of the fruits that you should eat and which ones will not raise your sugar level too high.
Okay.
Yes.
Lakini mboga kula.
Kabisa.
Okay, cool on mboga kabisa. Rose is saying, can we talk about the expensive insulin? Can we actually talk about the cost of managing diabetes, right? Because there's insulin, there are things now that we're hearing called glucose strips, glucose monitors, especially for type 1 diabetics.
You know, every disease, there's an industry that supports it.
I'm telling you, it's proper something. Because you can imagine, it's every day.
That is true.
And even as we look at the expense of managing diabetes, it is absolutely necessary that you do. Because a type 1 diabetic, if they do not have insulin, in the regular times that they should, they could go into shock and unfortunately, in some cases, die.
True.
So you have to have it. You can't say, well, I'm going to skip till Tuesday because, I'm a bit broke. You can't do that.
Yes.
So how expensive is it to manage diabetes?
That is very true, and one of the things that we empathize with our patients about, because unfortunately, even diabetes itself comes with other conditions, and the patients usually end up having so many drugs. So most of the time, diabetic patients also end up having hypertension. So there's a lot of polypharmacy. They end up having what we talked about, the neuropathies. So usually, even the prescription of a diabetic patient, you have their diabetic medications, you have their hypertensive medications, you have medications for the neuropathies, and then also they have to keep checking their blood sugars, okay? And that's why he's asking about the strips. The machine itself, we encourage our patients to have the machine, the strips, the syringes for them to regularly monitor their sugars. So it is indeed expensive for these patients to to manage diabetes. And they also have the test that they do 3 monthly just to check on complications. So one of the things that the government does, especially in the county hospitals, they try and regulate. They get their drugs at a subsidized fee. So at least for that, it helps. When the hospitals are well stocked, it helps to reduce the cost of medication for their patients. But you see, they still have to buy the machines. So it's something that I think would be great if you would have these things provided to our patients, so that to just reduce the overall cost of managing diabetes. Because our theme even this is diabetes care and well-being. And for care, we mean affordable care. Are we able to access care that would be able to enable this patient to have holistic care and be able to manage their sugars adequately? Yes.
What's the disease burden in terms of percentage in Kenya?
So currently we are talking of 3.3% prevalence of diabetes, but WHO is projecting by 2025 we should be having about 4.5%.
In Kenya?
Is that based on type 2 or across?
Across, but mostly type 2. Type 2 is the commonest cause of diabetes, but it's because of lifestyle. Nowadays, we do a lot of processed foods. We sit in offices from morning to evening. We'd rather take the lift than take the stairs. We are not exercising, So it's lifestyle, basically, lifestyle change. We are seeing a lot of change in our diet and lack of exercise and, as I said, sedentary lifestyle. Yes, because we have actually seen patients who are diabetic and with exercise and weight loss, their medication requirements actually reduce, and actually some have had reversal with lifestyle change. Yes.
Okay. How radical can you get with treatment? So we look at other diseases, cancer, for example, you can get extremely radical, remove the whole thing, right? So if you have a pancreas that is not operating for this insulin that you need, how radical can you get? Get a new pancreas, transplant, things like that? Do they actually come into play when talking about the treatment and management of diabetes? Do things like that come into discussion?
Like getting a pancreas, transplant.
Transplant.
I think that is why now they are bringing in the issue of artificial pancreas, which is relying more on technology to use what, as we said, the insulin pumps, which now are working together with the glucose monitoring to give now this artificial pancreas, like signals that now it needs to produce insulin to control the sugars. But in terms of transplant of the pancreas, maybe that is something that is still ongoing. Yeah.
Azaria is asking this question again. Not asking again, but asking a different question. He says, I lost a lot of weight early stages when I got diabetes. I've seen this symptom in many other diabetic patients at early stages. What happens to weight loss? That you lose quite a lot of it at the beginning.
So for diabetic patients, especially type 1, they lose a lot of weight. It's part of the complication of diabetes. Because diabetes has also a lot to do with the regulation of how you store your fats and everything. So for the type 1s, they tend to lose a lot of weight because they're not having the insulin to control and regulate. You see, the insulin is what feeds the body, because it takes the sugar into the body, and that is what is used to grow your cells, right? For your cells to be nourished, you need sugar. So if that is not happening, you'll definitely lose weight because your tissues are not getting the oxygen that they need, the sugar that it needs, so you lose a lot of weight. But you see, if you start putting back the insulin early, you're able to maintain your weight. Yeah, because without energy, it's like you don't have energy in your body. You lose weight. So that is why the type 1s lose a lot of weight, especially in the early stages. Yes. Okay. Yeah. I hope that makes sense.
Let's be clear. Is diabetes curable?
It's reversible.
And what's the difference?
Wow. I think reversible means that it's not 100% guaranteed that it will be, because if we said curable, it means that I will guarantee you that if I put you on this diet, of this medication, I can give you 100%. It's like an infection. I'll give you 100% guarantee that if we do this, you'll get cure. But that is not the case. There are some patients who still do everything that they need to do, the weight loss, the exercise, and still they do not achieve that complete reversal. I actually have a patient who I really admire. He's an ex-military officer. Whenever he comes, his sugar levels are usually on target. Even his records, the way he carries them, they're on target. He's always taking medication. He has very good support from his family. And for me, the lesson I got is also discipline is very important for sugar control. Right. So that is why I'm saying it is reversible. I will not use the word. I'll not use the word.
And reversible here means that whereas the pancreas was not producing insulin, we now see that it would.
Now there, what we'd say is we have increased your insulin sensitivity.
Okay.
Because the issue was now you are producing insulin, but you had less sensitivity to the insulin.
To do what it should do.
Exactly. Or for it to reach the muscles, maybe because of obesity, of lack of exercise. So now we're having more sensitivity to the insulin, and now we've been able to reverse the diabetes.
Does it then matter? Does it depend on how soon you're diagnosed and how soon you start this?
Definitely. The earlier you're diagnosed and put on medication, it helps. Number one, why? Diabetes also affects a lot of organs. Diabetes affects your eyes, the blood vessels, causes them to harden, become narrow. It affects your kidneys, and kidneys are also very important in regulating your blood pressure. That's why you see patients with diabetes also have hypertension. So if it's caught early, it will not have caused the adverse effects, and therefore it will be easier to have reversal of the diabetes.
And reversal often means also that you are now off medication.
And you can manage it with just food and
yes, I speak
but not off exercise.
No, you
please
have to exercise.
And cabbage.
And cabbage. So there's a marijuana question, which is a serious question that has been asked and probably used by lots of people around the world. Medical marijuana for the treatment and management of diabetes. Is it a thing?
There's a medical aspect of marijuana.
There's medical marijuana. Hey, CT.
No, I'm just asking. There's a medical aspect to marijuana.
Yes.
Okay.
But relax.
But just be easy for now.
Relax.
No, I'm actually...
Don't say I said.
Yes.
CT anasema diabetic.
Diabetes.
Amesikia kuna bangi na
bangi.
Kwanza
Bangi
CT,
katikati ya
tulia.
diabetes.
Wacha kwanza, let's hear from the doctor.
On that, I would request maybe to do a bit more research. I know about marijuana in terms of pain management, but for diabetes, allow me to research on that. Yeah, I don't want to give
false hope.
Yes.
Does diabetes lower libido in men?
Thank you. Yes,
What's the available solution?
Diabetes does lower libido in men, and it's one of the things that we try to screen for, especially when our patients come in for their checkups, and it's all based on the flow, the blood flow of. We've said when you have diabetes, it causes the blood vessels to narrow and become hardened, so the blood flow is also reduced. So yes, diabetes lowers libido in men.
All right, mitishamba. There are people who swear alikunywa mitishamba, alipewa dawa na hiyo kitu alimaliza. Nakunywa hii dawa, my friend, naponyesha kila kitu. Gonja ya sukari, gonja ya damu, gonja ya malesa yote, na dawa ya miti. True?
We've had several patients who've come in and say they come in diabetic emergency and they say that they used mitishamba and they got better, their sugar levels were okay, but now they've come in and they're in what we call the diabetic ketoacidosis, and so I don't know, it probably works for a while, but I would not recommend it for my patients. I would just, because that is what we learn and that is what we have seen that works. My challenge with sometimes the mitishamba is how much are you taking? We don't have dosages for it. I honestly believe most of our medicine comes from herbs, but Have we gotten the right dosages for
There's
these
some
things?
science behind it.
Exactly,
Okay.
the right dosages. So until we are there and we have people who actually study this and get us the right dosage and make sure it's not affecting our renal and liver function, I will tell our patients, please let us stick to what is researched and is known to work, which is our medication and lifestyle.
Asante sana. Dr. Isabel Makaduol is a family physician. She's at PCA Kikuyu Hospital. We've been talking about diabetes. Ndu?
Yes, dear.
Standard Chartered. What's that email?
It is priority banking. It's priority. Wait, let me just get it and do it right so that I don't make a mistake. I could
let's
be
focus
saying
on the priority.
something.
It's a priority.
Definitely
Okay,
priority
it's a
is there.
And there's SC.
But now let me tell you what it is for real.
For real.
For real.
Priority.
Priority banking. I was right the first time. I should never doubt
Never
myself.
doubt yourself.
Just like you should never doubt Standard
Go
Chartered
on.
when they
Priority
tell you.
banking?
Prioritybanking.ke@sc.com.
Sugar and spice.